Thank you for joining us for Live from the Theater Basement. I'm Chris Verrill, Theatrikos Executive Director. We'll get started with today's interview at 7:30. Hey, we want to welcome a few people to the Live from the Theater Basement team. We want to welcome Ava Haynes and Daniel Wilson, Stan Sutherland, Annette Falaha, who are all watching today and getting ready to be technicians and hosts of our wonderful new program. But most importantly, today, we want to thank Jamie Hassapis. Jamie will be joining us as our new producer for the interview segments of Live from the Theater Basement. And he's getting a test run today as our correspondent. He'll be doing our interview with the Museum of Northern Arizona with Mary Kershaw. All that comes your way at 7:30. Gather round. Thank you for joining us for Live from the Theater Basement. I'm Theatrikos Executive Director Chris Verrill. Let me give you a little bit of a rundown on how this program is going to work. By the way, we're going to chat with Mary Kershaw, the Executive Director of the Museum of Northern Arizona. That comes your way at 7:30. For those of you who've been watching the previews of this show for the last 3 months, thank you for joining us. You are obviously part of the Theatrikos family because we have been doing no publicity while we work this out. We have received partial funding from the Flagstaff Arts Council. We're looking for a little bit more funding, but we are well on our way towards getting this program launched. We have been spending the last few days purchasing the equipment necessary to make it happen. It's very exciting that we're going to be able to do this. Here's the schedule. We're going to do a show next week. We're going to do Brooke Wonder's Unbirthday, another 10-minute show. Then we are going to go on hiatus for the months of August and September while we install that equipment, while we take care of some graphics, while we recruit some volunteers and get ourselves all ready to come back. We will come back with new and improved previews in October with a launch in November. All those dates are tentative, but there's the plan that we're working on. So if you'd like to get involved, if you're craving theater, tune in. If you're an actor or a director or a host or a technician who is craving to get involved, give us a call or send us an email. We'd certainly love to hear from you. All righty, we're going to be here with the Museum of Northern Arizona and the wonderful and delightful Mary Kershaw at 7:30. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us for Live from the Theater Basement. I'm Theatrikos Executive Director Chris Verrill. We're going to get started here in just a couple minutes at the bottom of the hour. A great interview lined up with Mary Kershaw of the Museum of Northern Arizona. You know, a lot of arts and science and cultural institutions around the world are going through some tough times, but the museum, I think, despite those tough times, and it's hitting them just as much as everyone, they are making some progress, and we're going to figure out exactly how and exactly what you can do with the Museum of Northern Arizona. That interview comes your way next here on Live from Theater Basement. Today on Live from the Theater Basement, we interview Mary Kershaw, Executive Director of the Museum of Northern Arizona. We'll learn how and what MNA is doing to handle our coronavirus world health crisis. Live from the Theater Basement, streaming live on Sunday evenings at 7:30 p.m. and available wherever you get your podcasts, is a production of Theatrikos Theatre Company, in partnership with Northern Arizona Playwriting Showcase and Deuteron Films.
Join Lowell Observatory educators at the Javali Open Deck Observatory each week for guided, interactive stargazing via YouTube. It's stargazing reimagined at Lowell Observatory.
Our correspondent today is Jamie Hassans, live from the Theater Basement with the Museum of Northern Arizona.
And good evening, Mary. Thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to be here, Jamie.
You know, with COVID-19 becoming quite a challenge for our community and for businesses and our nonprofits, especially hit hard our arts and our cultural organizations. What are some of the things or challenges that you're facing today?
You're quite right, Jamie. The arts and cultural institutions have been hit really hard, and MNA is no exception. And one of the biggest challenges we faced very early on was working from home, and for all of the staff to be able to transition from their normal workplace to getting their work done or making new projects happen while working from home. So internally, that was a challenge. But of course, it also meant that we as a museum are used to welcoming visitors into our spaces, and we're no longer able to do that. So how do we still engage with them? And almost overnight, we had to learn how to deliver programs online, and not just what we did was not just try to continue what we might do in person, but do it online. We imagined new types of reaching people. So we were able to make a much bigger presentation of the type of activities that the museum does. So we've done a range of children's programs, science programs, lectures, online demonstrations, tours of the building, tours of our gardens and our outdoor spaces. And what we found is we have reached a much bigger audience than we would by doing these things in person. But of course, that leads us to the next challenge, which is one that cultural organizations are really struggling with, and that is the financial impact of COVID. We rely very heavily at MNA on our income stream from visitors at summertime, from admission, from fees for programs, and also from shopping in our museum shop. And so for the first 3 months we were closed, we saw a decline of about $500,000, which is huge.
Wow.
And that will be a challenge we will be working to address very hard.
And now another challenge I see is we're really famous for the indigenous festivals throughout the summer. It's a great, local favorite. How have they been affected, and what are your plans for the future?
Well, you're quite right when you say those festivals are a highlight in the summer season and the summer schedule. And part of their success is it's an opportunity for people to come and meet and be up close and with artists. So hundreds and thousands of people come to the museum to engage in close quarters, and that is just not possible in today's world. So we spent a lot of time trying to reimagine how these festivals might take place. And our first port of call was we decided to combine them all and in September do one large festival across the whole of the campus, which would be outdoors, and we would make it as safe as we could. Given the way numbers are going, we took a hard look at that and we saw there was no way that we could bring that number of people to our campus and do it safely. And so we have regrettably had to cancel the heritage festivals for this year. In their place, what we're trying to do is to profile many of the artists who would normally show with us in our online presentations, because we are mindful that aside from a wonderful experience for our visitors, these heritage festivals are also a significant source of income for the many very talented Native artists who show with us.
So have you opened up a Native store then for that?
Well, we do stock many goods by many local Native artists in our online shop. So those are available, but also as part of our online program, we have live artist demonstrations, and we featured a number of our Native artists in those live demonstrations as well.
All right. Well, thank you. The museum has been an integral part of the research going on in the Grand Canyon Plateau. Archaeology, ecology, the geology, and so much more of what's going on there. How have these programs been affected, and what changes, if any, are being made?
Well, like everything else, they have been dramatically affected. And I've worked very closely with our researchers. So the archaeology and ecology programs are still very much doing field work this summer. But we have worked very hard to put in very safe practices. So, for example, researchers are traveling in separate vehicles. They're not camping together. They're not sharing cooking when they're on site. So we're making sure they're not sharing equipment. We've really had to think through every step of the way, the work that they do, and how we could make sure that they could continue to do that safely. And I have to say the researchers, especially Kim Spur and Larry Stevens, have been really wonderful to work with to make sure that we can get their teams out in the field and we can do that very safely.
Oh, that's wonderful. And just a little tag on to that question. How do you see the integration of the arts and sciences in the future? What are you doing at the museum to integrate these?
Well, this is something that really had exercised my mind a lot in what I'm starting to call now the before days. So before we had to refocus and really just deal with COVID. Um, Art and science and the integration of art and science is at the very heart of the founding of MNA in the 1920s. And it's close to my heart, founded by a scientist from the University of Pennsylvania, which is my alma mater, and by an artist, Mary Russell Farrell Colton, who came out from Philadelphia, which is my hometown. So this integration is central to the heart of the museum and is something that we are looking at. How are we going to do that going forward? One example, which is also about popular culture and science fiction, is the exhibition that we have on until the end of August, The Forces with Our People.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's wonderful.
It's a great show, isn't it?
It is. We just have not much time left. We've got about 3 minutes. So I have another question for you. I've noticed on the website that you have revised hours at the museum. Is that still in place, or have you closed because of orders?
We have revised hours. There fewer days and shorter hours and timed tickets only. And what we're doing is we're restricting admission to 10 people at each time slot, and we have half-hour time slots. So
Okay.
10 people are admitted, starting at 10:30, finishing at 2. And all safety precautions, health and safety precautions are in place. But what that means is people have the opportunity to have a really privileged and almost private visit to the museum, which in itself is extremely special.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful experience over there. I've been a member in the past and kind of let it lax a little bit, but looking at planning on bringing that membership back up. But I've really enjoyed a lot of the exhibits, and I've had a lot of friends who have been artists who have actually shown there in the museum itself. Uh, One other question that I have is with and it kind of reverts back to a little earlier when you're talking about the cultures and the organizations. We have the celebración, I can't even say it in Spanish, the Celebration de los Agentes.
See.
What's happening with that one? I didn't mention that earlier.
Well, at the moment, we are still looking at that going ahead. And what we've done as this has progressed is we've looked at everything that is coming up in the calendar. And we've tried to take a look at, okay, when do we have to make a decision about whether that's reimagined or goes ahead? And as Celebraciones is at the end of October, we have some time to see how things are going with that. The one event we have completely reimagined and which is being rescheduled is our annual gala, which is another part of the calendar in Flagstaff, the social calendar. And what we are doing is on the 29th of August, we will be hosting a gala to go, which will be partly virtual and have the option of being also partly in person with a very special and reimagined visit to the museum.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, Mary, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure.
Jamie, thank you, and thank Theatrikos. It's been a real honor to be here.
The Artists Gallery presents the work of many of Flagstaff's finest artists. Open Thursday to Sunday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. 17 North San Francisco Street in Flagstaff. Wear your mask and come on down. The Artists Gallery. We put the spotlight on fine art.
Live from the Theater Basement is a production of Theatrikos Theatre Company. Today's correspondent, Jamie Hassapis. Jamie, first time out, well done. Thank you for joining the team, good sir. With Museum of Northern Arizona Executive Director Mary Kershaw. Good to hear that the museum is still open, even though the schedule is limited. Call ahead and you can still go to the museum. Live from the Theater Basement, producers Michael Roland and Linda Sotera. Engineer Matt Brewer. Associate producers Virginia Brown and John Propster. Crew, Annette Falaha, Ava Haynes, Jamie Hassapis, and Daniel Wilson. Dramaturgy, Theatrikos Artistic Committee. Play curation, Northern Arizona Playwriting Showcase, executive producer, Chris Verrill. Theatrikos Theatre Company, Flagstaff, Arizona, is the theater company of Northern Arizona and the Grand Canyon, embracing the spirit of Broadway with shows like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, Heisenberg, and Greater Tuning. Live from the Theater Basement is a new show currently in previews during our World Health Crisis and in the process of being launched in a few months. If you, as a listener or viewer, have input, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theater@theatrikos.com. Live from the Theater Basement, streaming live on Sunday evenings at 7:30 p.m. and available wherever you get your podcasts, is funded in part by Flagstaff Arts Council, #CreativeFlagstaff, Arizona Community Foundation, and listener viewers like you. I'm your host, Chris Verrill. Thanks for joining us. We're live from the Theater Basement. This is Theatrikos. Up next on Live from the Theater Basement, we present the 10-minute short play, Unbirthday, by NAP's award-winning playwright, Brooke Wonders. Anne fears that Tom has forgotten her birthday again. For him to make it up to her, she deserves the biggest birthday of all. Unbirthday, next week, live, Sundays at 7:30 p.m. and wherever you get your podcasts.